Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Anthony Hinnon, Pennsylvania reporter for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, we have had all sorts of wrangling, mistakes, errors, whatever you want to call it, blunders perhaps, looking at moving Pennsylvania's primary election date. But it doesn't look like we're really changing much, are we? What's happening?
Yeah, nothing's changing. After several rounds of bills that kind of went back and forth between March 19th and then April 4th and April 16th, there was an amendment to push it to May 7th. I mean, this really just kind of devolved into another game of chicken and, just kind of catty, like sarcastic almost, you could say, dares from each side of the aisle, really. So to start this conversation, last month, September 20th, the Senate passed a bill nearly unanimously. I mean, there was something like 5 lawmakers who didn't support it. And this bill would have moved our primary election up to March 19th, which usually our primaries are in the second to last week of April. And the idea here is that, number one, March 19th wouldn't get in the way of certain holidays like Passover or Easter. And then also it would put us earlier in the process so that Pennsylvania as a key swing state would have more of an impact on the outcome. As we all know, by the time we get to our primary, a lot of the candidates are already kind of cemented. So Pennsylvania doesn't have too much sway in that conversation. That bill passed out of the chamber, went to the House. House didn't do much with it for about a month or 3 weeks, I guess you could say. They passed a couple of bills late last week. One would have moved the primary date to April 2nd, which is the same weekend as Easter or right before Easter or after it. Can't remember. And then there was another bill that they had passed. They amended the Senate proposal that they had sent them, said, okay, we'll keep March 19th. And we're going to throw in all these great voting reforms that Republicans especially want, like universal voter ID and changes to pre-canvassing. But the Senate said, no, we can't do this because now you've waited too long. We're too close to a general. Counties have already made plans for the primary that is going to be on April 23rd. And so now it's too late. The window is closed. We can't do this. And so that bill, although it sounded like something everyone would support, it's failed spectacularly, like 176 votes. Against it. This week, they came back, amended it again, and this time put in property tax reform. That's another long-standing issue that the legislature's been trying to fix. And again, this one passed. Just barely. There was a couple votes against, but this passed. And the Senate very quickly came out and said, nope, not doing this. Same problem as before. Way too close. We're not doing this. Besides, their date was April 16th, which how much, earlier in the process is that really? So at the end of the day, nothing has changed and nothing's going to change, in time for the primary election.
Yes, it seems like we went from conflicts with Easter, conflict with Passover. I heard one day suggested would also conflict with the Islamic holiday of Eid. So it seems like we just went down the list and knocked out all Abrahamic religions to cause some sort of issue. So is this done then? We're getting no movement on this?
I'd say yes for now. I mean, it doesn't mean that in the future, maybe next year, that they won't talk about it. But I would say for 2024, we only have a primary every spring. So maybe 24, they'll say, okay, for the next, primary election, we will move it up. But from the Senate's perspective, waiting until October was too late. Now, one could argue September 20th doesn't seem like it's that much further in advance, and it's not clear why that was enough time. I do know that county election and local election officials were saying that it's just too quick. So that is a concern that is held by the majority of lawmakers, and whether they can get into gear sooner. I mean, it certainly won't happen in the summer, as we all know. So it's a big question mark of whether they will do this again. Obviously, the pressure here is that we have a presidential primary coming up. And so I guess there is some consensus that maybe this would be a better change to make in more of an off year. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Kristen Smith, this is Anthony Hinnon. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.